Hello and welcome to CommunityForce training. Today's session will be going over setting up your review process. And this training will be for both our scholarship and grants platform. The setup functionality for the review process is the same for both scholarships and grants. However, I will probably touch on some of the setup functionality. If it does have any differences, I will touch on those differences as we go through that. And I'll also show examples of grant items as well as the scholarship items as I go through this training today. So let's go ahead and talk about some of the things that are part of the review process that we're going to be discussing today. So when we set up the review process, of course, you have the task card that usually is created by our implementation team. And then that task card is usually what you give to the reviewers to start the review process, to start reviewing the applicants. And so that could be maybe a scoring rubric if you have a scoring system set behind your review process, or it could just be a matter of maybe you just want to give them the applications to be able to see them online, and so you just create a very basic task card in regards to just asking them did they review, and then assigning them so that they can have those access to those application forms online. Maybe not a whole scoring process, but maybe just like a question or two. You might have something like that, a task card. And so we're going to talk about setting those tasks up. We're also going to talk about automated scoring. So we do have the ability in our system to add scores to specific questions. So if you have questions that are formatted in a way where we can pull data, like they're questions that have forced values, or maybe it's a numeric question, things like that, then we can actually tag automated scoring to those so that the system would see, okay, for instance, GPA. If it was GPA was between this rate and this rate, give them a score of 5. It was between this score and this score, give them a 10, and so forth. It would do that automatically by looking at the question. So we'll talk a little bit about how to set that up. And then also with your review process, you have committees. So in order to assign applicants to individual committee members, you do have to build the committees. So we'll talk about how to manage those committees, and then also adding members to those committees. And then we'll also talk about making assignments. So once you have your task card built, you've got your committees built, you can start assigning applicants to those committees and assigning the task that they're going to be reviewing those applicants with. So in the assignment piece, we're going to talk about filtering by funding. So you scholarship users, if you have that one-to-many process, we will show you if you have scorecards, you have different scorecards for each scholarship. Maybe you have a different committee, you have a different scorecard. We'll show you how to filter applicants based on the funds that they're matched to, so that those review committees only get the applicants that belong to that specific scholarship. And then also we'll talk about being able to even filter on specific questions. Maybe our grant users, they have maybe the interest area that they're asking for in the application form, and they want to know, maybe they have a committee that does just the arts, or one that does the health, or one that does education. Those committees are reviewing the applicants that fall within those areas. So we can even talk about how you can run filters when you're making the assignments with that as well. And then also, after you've made the assignments, how you can review and double check the assignments before you actually turn them over to your review committee. And then if you need to make any edits before you turn it over to them, we'll talk about that. And then also how you can send an email in the assignment piece to your review committee that actually goes to your reviewers from the site. So let's go ahead and get started, and let's go to our CommunityForce site. Okay, so we are here on our scholarship site, and I am on the home page. I'll go ahead and open up a grant site so you can kind of see the area that we're going to be covering on both platforms. So if I go to the scholarship site and we select our application form, let's go ahead and do this one here. And then while that's loading, we'll go ahead and do the same on the grants. We'll select a grants one. Okay, And then we're going to be here as soon as we hit that next screen, we're going to be here in the Manage Applications. And so that is where we want to be. So we would expand this menu here for the Manage Applications. And the first item we're going to cover is the Review Task Setup. So we're going to touch on that for a little while and discuss that Review Task Setup. Because that is the first step of setting up your review process. You need to create that scorecard. And the scorecard is very similar to maybe a section. Picture it as being maybe a separate section in that application form, but it's kind of, the review process is disconnected from all that. It's still included in the application, but it has its own build process for that here in the review task setup. So I'm going to go ahead and click on it here. And of course, when you come here, if any tasks that you currently have built on the site, they will show listed. And then of the sort order would be the order that they are on the listing here. Some of you may have multiple stages to your tasks. So then of course the sort order can be maybe step 1, step 2, step 3. And so that's just how those are kind of listed here. And we also have over here, there is a trash can. Now, if you delete a task, that will delete, if you've already scored on it, you're going to delete all the scores as well. So deleting tasks is something you want to use caution, but there is the ability here. So when you're first creating a task, if you haven't assigned it to anyone and you realize that's not a task you want, you can delete it. But I will tell you, use extreme caution. If you delete a task that's already been reviewed on, then you're going to lose all of the reviewers' scoring. So once you've created a task, you will not want to delete it because you will lose that scoring if they've already scored on that. And you will not be able to retrieve it. It'll be gone. So I don't think you want to do that. You also have this little preview icon. So if you want to see how a task is going to view to your review committee on the review side, you can click this little icon right here, this little preview icon, to see the scorecard that's been set up on the site. Here, if I preview this one here, and then you'll be able to see how it looks to them. Now, normally, if there was applicants on this application form, then they would see application details here to the right as well. And so the applicant's application would be here on the right, and then the actual scoring rubric that they're going to be using to score it will be here on the left. And so you can see it's very similar to creating questions. And so let's talk about building a task. So to build a task, it's simply a matter of you can create a task, which would start with a clean slate, or you can clone a task. And if you clone a task, cloning a task allows you to clone a task in any application you currently have on your site. So if there is a task in another application form that you like, then you can always come here, click the application, click the task that you wish to clone, and then just click Save and Exit, and that would create that specific task in your new application form. That's one way. Now, if you're cloning the application, just remember anytime you clone the application, the review task that was in that originating application, those tasks will also clone as well. So if you clone an application, all the tasks that were in there, when you open up the screen, you will see those. Let's go into the Create a Task. And of course, the first step in creating a task is to give it a name. And this name is the name that the reviewers would see when they do have the assignment given to them. They're going to have a screen that tells them the name of the task. And so this would be the name that they would see. So you would want to name this something that they would understand. And then the order number, of course, is the order that it's going to fall in your series of review processes. If you just have one step, but maybe you're making multiple scorecards, maybe you have a different scorecard for every scholarship, they're going to be, that review committee has a different scholarship, so each scholarship has its own committee, and so you more than likely will be creating scorecards for each one of those scholarships. And so of course that numbering system would be, you just be putting it the next number in the series. It's not like it's going to affect when it shows to them or not. And so here the order number, you can just put that in there if you wish. And I'm just going to leave that at 4. And then there's 2 toggles here, display on review reports. So this is displaying the review tasks to you as the admin. So this toggle you will want to turn on. If you don't have it turned on, you will not be able to see this specific scorecard in any of your reports. So if you're trying to do ad hoc reports and you don't have this selected, it's not going to show it there. If you're reviewing score results anywhere, if you have the task turned on, turned off, then it's not going to show in any of those areas. So if you need to be able to see the report, then you definitely want this to be turned on. And there are occasions that you would turn this off, especially if you have multiple scorecards and maybe you only want to see the score for one scorecard when you're in the review results. Then you would want to turn this one off, so that, or all of them that you didn't want to see, you would turn off by unselecting this display on review reports. And then the display to reviewer, if this is not selected, your reviewers will not see the task card. So the display to reviewer, more than likely you would only unselect this at the end of the process. Maybe they're done doing all the reviews, they're done scoring. You don't want them going in and making any changes, or there's no need for them to see the scorecards anymore. You want to turn it off for them. Then you can come here and remove the check mark to display to reviewer, and that will turn it off for the reviewers. They will no longer have it in their listing. So let's say maybe next year they come back, you've already turned off this task. Next year they're in the next year's process, they're going into the review site, they're not going to see this anymore because it's done and over with, and they don't need to see that in their listing anymore. So you can turn it off. And turning it off saves the scores, and so that's what you would want to do at the end of each season or end of each cycle. After they've done reviewing, you can just come here, remove this selection box, and then that takes it so that they no longer have access to it. They can't see it. And that's why you, of course, do not want to delete it. You just want to come here and remove the display to reviewer. But when this is selected, they can see it. I do know some of our clients, just word of caution is they'll forget to select this. They'll turn it over to their committees for review, and the committee can't see it. And so this is one of the things that controls their ability to be able to see it. So this is one of the first places you would want to look. And then also in the general information, if you don't have show the application to committee, then they won't be able to see it there, as they won't be able to see it either if you don't have that selected as yes. So we're going to go ahead and hit save and exit. And then of course, once we've done creating the name, then of course you'll see over here, this is how display on review reports. This is one way you'll know if you've got it turned on. If you can't see a task anywhere as the admin, then you can come here real quick, look at this column and see, yes, okay, I have it turned off. I need to go into that task and turn it back on. And so if you need to do that, it's just a matter of going here, going to the task name, and then selecting that toggle so that you have it there once again, and then hitting save and exit. And then you'll notice it goes to yes now. And then of course this column here is for the reviewers. If they can't see it, then come here and you can see quickly if that's turned on or not. And the same process, just click on the name. So that's how you create the actual tasks. So it's kind of like when we were creating application sections, we built the section first. And so that's kind of what we did here. We're kind of creating the section that they're going to be reviewing. And now over here, we're going to be creating the score sheet. So we click the create edit here. I'm going to go ahead and click on the existing one. And when we click the create edit, this is where we start seeing the questions. This is where we build the questions. So building questions in review sheets are the same as building questions in your application form. It's the same process. You're going to click add a question. And you're going to give the question its name. This is what the reviewer sees. This is how they're going to see the question. So of course it's going to be in a Word formatting. And then also we have that column name because any question in a scorecard can be pulled into ad hoc reports. So you'll be able to see that. And so we'll give it a column name. We'll go And then also I use that same type of naming convention, the first couple letters of the task name. And then, okay. And then also you have the XML name. And there is an import functionality available. So if you have committee members and you have scorecards, and let's say you've got different scorecards per scholarship, and you might even have the exact same scorecard, but you need to actually identify the score for a specific scholarship, you're going to have a different scorecard. And so if it's the same scorecard, you can actually, if a reviewer sits on multiple committees, then you can have the scores pushed. There is functionality that's called push scores to applicant. And so if I'm a reviewer and I'm in a scholarship committee and I'm on scholarship 1 and I get this group of students, and I'm also on the committee scholarship 2 and I get the same group of students or some of the same students, I'm looking at the exact same questions, I'm just sitting on a different scholarship committee. So I don't need to score this applicant again if I have this push scores. And if the XML's the same, then we can use the push score functionality, and it'll take whatever they score that applicant on one score sheet, it'll then push the data down to the other score sheet. And of course, as part of your implementation, we will assist you with some of your review process. If it's anything that requires a little bit special handling, we will give you assistance in that so that you can fully understand your process in regards to how the system sets it up. But the setup aspect of it, of creating that task, is all the same. It's just you may need to have multiple tasks instead of just one task, depending on your processes. So I'm just going to give this a quick XML name. And then the bubble instructions, that's the same with the instructions to the applicant. This is that little blue bubble. This is special instructions. If you want to enter any overall instructions on how to answer the specific question, you can. And then over here is the question type. And you can see there's not as many question types on the review process. One thing you do want to note is when you're creating questions that you want the system to actually pick up the score. So those questions where you want the system to tally scores, you must use either a drop-down question type and enter those scores, or a numeric question type. Now, numeric will allow them to enter any score that between a certain range of numbers. So you'll see here, as soon as I hit the numeric, it asks for a maximum length. If I put a maximum length of 2, then they can enter a score anywhere within that range of 2 digits. So all the way up to 99, they would be able to enter that number. However, if I want to force values on them, I can actually create a drop-down. And only the drop-down, like I said, the drop-down and numeric are the only two question types that the system knows that when it sees a number in that field to actually add that into the score. All other question types, it will not add that as a score. So on the drop-down, of course, if we were going to create a scoring system, we'd create that, click the drop down, and then go into the add values, and then you add values just like you would on any normal question. However, with this one, you'll notice it does not start with the word select. So remember, drop downs always have to start with the word select. So if the word select wasn't there, then you do want to enter that word select. And you'll notice here we have a label and a value. So maybe you don't want the scorers to see what their scores are scoring, but they just want, maybe you want to say good. It gets a value of, let's do something like this. Excellent gets 20 points. You'll notice, and the value. So the value has to have the numeric figure. You can't put text in the value if you put text in this value, it will not pick it up as a score. So that has the numeric item. And then I just come over here, hit plus, and then maybe I want to do great, and that person gets 15, do plus, and here, 10, and then another plus sign. And they get 5. Okay, so that's one way where if you don't want them to see the score, then you can go ahead and put the text in the label, but do not put text in the value. And then you hit the plus sign to save that. And then once it's saved, it's ready to start capturing the scores. And then you also have the editor box where you can do the same thing like you can in creating questions. You can come here and enter the information here in the editor box. So of course, if I didn't have anything tagged like this, then I could just maybe do a 20, or I could do, a lot of times maybe we have a 0 through 5. We have 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And then we can just hit save, and then you'll see it puts it in the label and puts it in the value, and then that's what they'll see. Now remember I said something about that select, so you always do want to start these lists with the word select so that it doesn't automatically answer that score for them, because if I did not put the word select, it's going to pick the first one in the row here and it's going to score that applicant with a 0. So you definitely want to make sure you put that word select in the listing so that when they get to that question it says select and not 0, and then they end up scoring that applicant with a 0. And you can put the numbering in any sorting. You can go, I just went low to high, but if you wanted to go high, start with high to low, you could do that as well. But that's the drop down question type. And then also the numeric. If you use the numeric, the system knows that that's a number they're typing in, and that whatever number they type in, then that'll pick up that score. But for the most part, we use drop downs when we're picking up the scores, because you want to force the score that they're entering. You want to give them a list, and you don't want them, if you want it to be at least, if you want to do a 10, 20, 30, you don't want them putting in like 22, 23, 24. So that's where the drop down would come in, and you could force those specific scores that you're looking for. And then again, we have the required field. If you must have that score, you need them to answer that, you have to have it required. Every score sheet has to have at least one required, and it does show percentage complete for them, so that's there. And then this hidden from applicant, this is showing because in the general information, so the application settings, general information, there was a toggle that said show scoring comments to applicant, and this specific application has that marked as yes. So what this is saying is hidden from applicant. I could have this specific score question hidden so the applicant couldn't see it if I had that toggle turned on. But more than likely, the majority of our clients, you're going to have that toggle turned off and you will not see this hidden from applicant here. And then the scoring comment, I'll talk about that in a minute. You're only allowed one question to be the scoring comment. And so I'll talk about that, like I said, in a minute, what the scoring comment is. And then the order, this would be the order that the question appears on their scorecard. And then also upload file if you wanted to provide a document for your reviewers. Now this would put that document on every single applicant, but if you wanted to provide a document, you could actually create a question. You could create a message type question using the message question type, and then provide a document to them that they can look at. That would be on every applicant, and it wouldn't be for each specific applicant, but it would be a generalized document that they could access while they were on every applicant, but it's not applicant specific. It's just one document that would be applied to every single applicant with the same message. And then when you create that question, it's just a matter of hitting save and exit. And then you have that question. And also, remember I talked about the message. A lot of times if you want to give instructions to your reviewers, so there's no instruction area to create instructions for your task card. So normally what we'll do is we'll add a question at the beginning. We'll make it a message type question, and that will give them an instructional type information like score the following areas as follows, something like that. And then we'll do maybe a scoring listing here for them to know how to score. And then you would just save that, and then that would be at the, wherever you put that into that scorecard task. So I'm going to go out, I'm going to go into one that's already been created. We're going to look at the score sheet one again. And we're going to look at the create edit. This is one that's already there. So you can kind of see, like here they have the criterion and how they're to measure, and it says please score 1 to 10. And then there's a drop down, and then that's where they would choose the score of 1 to 10. And then each one of these, they actually have a essay box where the reviewer can actually enter comments on each of the areas. So that's one way that individuals set things up. And then we also have here, remember I said the scoring comment. So one question out of your entire scorecard can be tagged as a scoring comment. And how the scoring comment works is whatever that question is that you choose to make the scoring comment, when you're looking at result reports, anytime you see a review committee results or review committee status, you can actually see a column, and it's called review comments in that report. And we'll talk about this in the next training, this report. But whatever question is tagged as the scoring comment will then show in that column. And so for the most part, we'll add it and we'll just create scoring comment. We'll call the question scoring comment. So if you see that on your scorecards, that's the question that we've tagged as the scoring comment. And it can be required or it doesn't have to be required. But if it's a question, maybe you're going to tag something, and I'll show you here on a grant site that you might use it for. And maybe a question that says something about, do you want to fund this applicant, yes or no? And you want that yes and no to show as the scoring comment. So you don't have to dive into everybody's scorecard. You can actually tag that as the scoring comment. But for the most part, when we're building scorecards, if we haven't had that discussion, you'll see a comment box that says scoring comment. And a lot of times we will make it required. A lot of times you don't require them to answer a scoring comment. Maybe you don't need the comments, you just want the scores, but we will still create that and we will make that the scoring comment so that if they do enter any comments, you can immediately see those when you're looking at the results. And so to make a question a scoring comment, it's just a matter of coming in here and opening the question and selecting this scoring comment box. And once you select one, the system will let you know if you try to select another one that you can only pick one. So you would have to go back into the question that you wanted to remove it from and then find the other one that you wanted to add it to. And then once you add it, you'll notice here scoring comment, it'll add yes to that column here. And then of course required goes towards percentage complete. And if you don't want them to miss a score, you want to make sure and put those as required questions. Now on the grant side, I'm going to go to the grant site. So you can just kind of see an example of a scorecard. I know I was in the scholarship site, but I want you to see some of the scoring ways that we do scoring in grants. So a lot of times our grant users, you don't really have a scoring rubric where you have scores being calculated in the background. You just maybe want to give your reviewers access to the applications online. They don't need to score or anything like that. They just need to be able to read them and be able to read them online. So what you can do in those scenarios is you can actually just create a very simple task. So in order for them to be able to see the applications and review online, you have to have a task to assign to them. You still have to go through the assignment process to get them to be able to see those applications, and if you want to know if they've done them or not. And so here's a couple of examples. So let's go to the review task setup. We're on the grant site. And here's a very basic one that I've set up. And that would just be one where I'm giving it to them to review, and then I want to track if they've reviewed them or not. More than likely you want to know if they've done them. And have you reviewed this applicant, yes or no? And if you'd have that you just need that one required question, and as long as they say yes, then it would mark it 100% complete. Or maybe you want to at least say, have you reviewed the applicant, and then how do you wish to fund the applicant? There's this actual question type, and this is how when you select that question type, it shows the results. It says, how do you wish to fund the applicant? And you can say approved, need more information, or not approved. Very basic question type. And to build that question, we just go in here to the create edit, And the question type is called reviewer approval. So when we built this question, we made that we selected reviewer approval. And when you select that question type, then that is how it displays. So if I go back out here, add question, whoops, I don't want to go back out here and go to review task basics, then this is exactly the replies that it gives them to select from. So that's one way if you just wanted something basic. And then also one thing I did with that is I actually made that how do you wish to fund the applicant, I made that the scoring comment. So then when I'm looking at all the results of my reports, my committee status, and I want to see, I can actually, when I'm looking at these reports, I can see that reviewer comment on the applicant that they've reviewed, and it will give me the comment, approved, not approved. And you can, of course, do that with any type of question. But that is one thing. If you just wanted a very basic, you just wanted to do that, and then a quick approval, not approval, that's one question type you can use. And then also, we do have an example here. Let me see if I can find it real quick here. Of just a very basic scoring system, like yes, maybe, no. Just a very basic where they're just having them answer yes, maybe, no. Just yes, no questions. There's no scores behind it, but just basic. And then this one here, this is just one that they created a drop down with text items, so it's not going to pick up a score because there's no scores related to this specific rubric. But maybe you want to create your own list. You don't want to use the approval list. This one is select, whole, partial, none. And then maybe you want to create another question of a currency question of how much do you recommend funding this specific program. So those are just some ways of some of the examples of scorecards that some of our reviewers have had. And of course on yours, per the process review that we have with you, we will determine how to build your scorecards for you. But just so you can see that that's the different scenarios for different functionalities. And that's on our grant site, but you can see it's you're building it the exact same way. Now you'll also notice when I'm in the create edit for the questions, there is the delete. But just remember, if you delete a question after they've scored it, you're going to lose the scores. So once you go live with your task card, you don't want to mess with your questions. You don't want to mess with your tasks, because anything you remove is going to remove all of the reviewer scores. Every single reviewer that scored, you're going to lose it. You're going to lose the data on either the question or even the task. So do not delete your tasks or questions after you've turned it over to your reviewers, unless you definitely do not want that score anymore, ever. Okay, so that's how you create tasks. So now that you've created your task, let's jump to automated scoring here real quick, so you can just kind of see how that functions. And this is something that maybe a lot of our scholarship users would use, not so much our grants. But automated scoring is a means to tag scores to specific replies to questions. So the first thing you do is, of course, you do need to select your funding. If you just had one application with one fund, then of course you just have one fund. But this does allow you to create automated scoring for different scholarships too. So if certain scholarships required a extra score for a GPA, then you can maybe pick that scholarship and then create your automated scoring. And so you would need to do that for all of them. For it to show up on all, you would need to make sure and select your scholarships and create that automated scoring on each scholarship. So I'm just going to do create automated scoring. I clicked that button. And then here's the funding. And then here is where, if it's scorecard automated scoring that you're not wanting to do it per scholarship and you have those multiple funds tied, then when you create the funding, you just want to make sure and click the all and then click OK, and then that way it'll create that for every single fund that they've matched to. And then the next thing is, where's the question housed? What section in that application is the specific question in? So if I wanted to do something maybe on the FAFSA, I wanted to pick up and do automated scoring on their FAFSA question. So then I would say section, and then here, what's the question that I would want to pick that up on? So of course, if I select this question here, then the next thing is the type of field. It's going to tell me it's a number field. And so then I can enter a condition. So what's the condition for this score? So I can say a minimum maximum value. And then I can say if the score is between 1,000 and 1,500, give this FAFSA score a 50 or something like that. And then hit save and exit. And then it would list that one. And then you would create another one. So like if you had all these different ranges, you would just keep adding the score for every single range. And then it would start showing here. And then of course, in the next training, we'll talk about the report. There is a report that shows the results of this automated scoring. And so then you can see what their automated score is. And when you're in the awarding, you'll be able to see this automated score too. So you can do this on multiple questions. And if that on multiple values, if it's a value question, a numeric question, you can do that on all of. And of course, if this was something we discussed in implementation and we are doing your implementation, this is something that we would assist you with setting up. Now let's talk about managing committees. So you've created your task, you've got your automated scoring built. Now you're ready to start getting your committees ready. So the first step in managing committees, of course, is in the administration setup users. You will need to have all of those committee members have to have user accounts set up in the system already before you can start adding them to committees. But to manage committees, your first step here is we're going to click the Add Committee. We're going to build that group of individuals. You're going to give it a name. And this is something that's going to have meaning to you, of course. And then we're going to hit save and exit. Then as soon as we hit save and exit, the next screen that comes up is the screen to start adding the members to that committee. Very simple process. You name it, and then of course all of their names here would be pulling from the user setup, and they would be looking at everyone that has that role type of reviewer. So if you don't see a reviewer here in the listing and you forgot to set up their user account, there is a click here where you can quickly go to that setup screen and create an account for them. And then go ahead and hit save and exit. And usually when I'm creating reviewer accounts, we don't send them any notification emails or anything like that. And we just go ahead and create the account and then hit save and exit. And then that individual would then start showing in this listing here. So if I want to add individuals to my committee, I've got my committee. And so over here are the ones that I have. These are reviewers and administrators. So any admin does not need to have a separate reviewer account. They're going to show up here on the listing. And so then you just start taking and start adding your reviewers to the listing. If you want to filter, you do have this filter capability where you can search for specific ones. So let me see if my support one is in here. I can hit search, and there I am. And then I can add myself to this committee. And then you'll notice as soon as I've added that, it then opens up the list again. And it's just a matter of adding them. And you can hold down your control key and then use your left mouse to hit multiple if you want, and then move them over. If you realized, oh, I didn't want to add that person, you can just take and remove them. This is not sending any notifications whatsoever to those committee members. You're just building the committee and adding the reviewers based off of their accounts and adding them to that committee. And so if you don't want them, then you can, of course, just start removing them and putting them back over. And then once you're done adding your members, you just hit continue. And then your committee is done. You've built that committee. Now, there is an edit here. So if you need to edit, if I click the first edit box here, this will allow you to edit the name. And then you can click the assign members button here to start adding members to them. That's one way that you can make adjustments. Or if you click the committee name here, you'll see it takes us directly to where we can add. So maybe you're adding committee members, but maybe some of them you haven't confirmed that they are going to sit on the committee this year. So maybe you haven't added them. You can always come back in and add those individuals. Now you want to do all of this before you make the assignments. You want to make sure you've got your committee members nailed down before you make assignments, because it can be a little challenging to start removing committee members once you've assigned them. Because one thing, if you do, again, if you delete the committee, you're going to delete all the scores that they've been assigned to. So you don't want to delete committees either, because that will remove everything that committee did that you've assigned it. So once you start assigning, we'll talk about that once you get into the assignments. How do you back out the assignment? How do you back out the member from the committee member and add somebody else to replace them? There is ways you can do that. So we'll get into that here in just a minute. So that's pretty much how you build the committee. So then the next step is right here. Once you start assigning, it will start showing you the applicants that were assigned to that committee as well. So let's talk about assignments to committees. Assignments to committees. So if I select this here, this is where you make your assignments. This is your slate that you use, your worksheet that you use to start assigning individuals to those committees. Now there is this nice little report here, applicant assignment worksheet, and if there were any applicants that hadn't been assigned yet, you could actually click this worksheet, and you can maybe do kind of, this worksheet would export your applicants to Excel, and you can maybe do kind of a manual setup before you actually set it in stone here in the system. This worksheet will let you kind of put everything into Excel, kind of look at all of your applicants, and then maybe start making your determination. Okay, I want this group of applicants to go here, and so forth. And then when you come here, you've got all that kind of figured out, and then you can quickly get through the assignment piece. But of course, the very first step of the assignment is the task. So when creating your task, you created that task, you're going to now say, okay, what task am I wanting to assign right now? So if you have multiple tasks and multiple scholarships, then you're going to be saying, okay, I have scholarship 1. I need to make sure right now I'm assigning scholarship 1, that task, to the scholarship 1 committee. So I need to make sure I get the right task. And so anytime you're assigning the task, make sure you're picking the correct task for the correct committee for the correct level that you're wanting the review to happen in. So I'm going to select the task, and then you can select specific statuses, but the system will automatically give you the ones that are submitted and requests pending. They will still pull here into this report. So I usually just leave status as all. But of course, if you have different levels to your review process and you're using status details, like you might do a process of elimination, so you do level 1. So when you get to level 2, you need to be able to select and filter just the ones that you've now approved to move forward. You don't want all those other applicants again. You've got your status detail, and then you can just have the system filter on that specific status detail. And if you're not using status details, of course, just leave that as all. And then you have the filter by. You can skip this if you don't need to filter by anything. You can skip this. You don't need to do the filter by. But if you are doing a task for each scholarship and you have a committee for each scholarship, of course, here on funding, this is where you would select the funding. And then it would say, okay, this task is for which scholarship. So I'm going to say, okay, this is my Arvin McCord Braswell scholarship. This is my Arvin McCord Braswell task. And when I get to the committees, I'm going to pick the committee that's going to be reviewing this group of students. So what this is going to be doing is it's going to be filtering out all the applicants and returning the ones that have matched based on the criteria you built. When you built the application, you built that criteria, matching applicants to specific criteria, saying if they met that criteria, they were eligible for this specific scholarship. It's going to give you all the applicants that matched to that scholarship, and only the applicants that match to that scholarship when you filter. And then of course you just hit here, you hit display applicants. You want to make sure you hit that. And then when you display applicants, there's a couple of toggles here. So when you first start, you're going to want to make sure you do all applicants, because that's giving you all the applicants based on the filter. Or if you didn't do a filter, it's going to give you all the applicants based on submitted and pending, request pending. But then once you start assigning applicants to a task, and this is per task, so once they've been assigned to a reviewer in a task, they're going to go to the assigned status. So if you're assigning maybe one at a time, you want all the assigned to disappear. So then you're going to say, just give me the unassigned. So you might start with all, but then as you start assigning one by one, then you just want to see the ones you haven't assigned yet to this task, then you can go to unassigned, or maybe you want to see the ones that you have assigned, and that would give you the listing of the assigned. But right now I'm just going to do all applicants. I'm going to remove this filter because we don't need that here. And so that's just showing us how to display applicants. Right now we're just filtering applicants. And then for the custom filter, I'm going to go ahead and go to a grant site, because this is something some of our grant users might want to use when they're creating assignments to their committees. And so one thing you may have in the grant sites is you may have different interest areas, and you may have different committees by interest areas, and so those committees are only reviewing applicants based on that interest area. So maybe you have an arts category or an education category, and you have your reviewer task for your arts group, and then you can come here to the custom filter, and if you've had the question in your application already, you can come here and add the filter. So what we're going to do is we're going to add the custom filter. And our first thing is, what section has that question? So I'm going to go to project description. And then the question I'm looking for is proposal investment area. And so if you have a question, something similar to that, I can hit save and exit. And then here it gives me that proposal investment area. And then right now, maybe I want to filter just my applicants that chose arts. And so I would say proposal investment area equals, and then there's my drop down built from that question, and I'm going to say arts and culture. And then I'm going to hit display applicants. You have to hit display applicants. You always want to do that before anything starts showing. And then what would happen is all the applicants, let me see if I don't know that I have any on this, but all the applicants that chose that interest area, right here's one, then they would show down here below. And then of course I would make my assignments, and then when you're ready to switch to the next group, maybe you have another one, and I'll show you how to do the assignments here in a minute. Maybe you have education. One thing you want to make sure of, you still got the question here, but right now it's pointing at arts and culture. So when you change tasks, you want to change the filter. Same with the scholarships. When you're changing tasks, you want to make sure you change your funding so that you pick up the right applicants. And so maybe I'm going to switch here to health, and then I'm going to hit display applicants, and then it's going to give me all of my health applicants, and then so forth. So each time after you've done your assignments, then you come up here, you want to make sure to remember to change those areas. And then the same with the scholarships. If you're doing it by funding, you do scholarship 1, you do your listing and make your assignments. Then when you're done making that batch, you go and you pick the next one, but make sure you then switch the task as well. And you make sure you remove, go none, and then if you haven't gotten in and out of the screen, and then click the next one. You want to make sure you clear the slate and you're not including both of those in there. Because if you open this up again, it's liable to have both of them selected. So you want to make sure that you have only the one that you want to pull on selected, and then do that. Okay, so that's adding applicants and picking it based on the filters. So now you have your applicants down here. All your applicants are listed. I'm going to go ahead and clear this so I have a little bit longer listing of applicants. Okay, I just needed to clear that toggle there. I just switched it to custom filters and now it'll give me applicants. So when I'm ready to see my list of applicants, my next step is what's the committee that's going to be this task. So here's my task. I've done my filtering if I needed to, and now I'm seeing all my applicants. And now I want to say what committee. So I'm going to pick my review committee. That's the committee that's going to be reviewing this task. And then my committee members are going to show. And then over here are my applicants, and depending on how you disperse your applicants among your committee members, so maybe I want every applicant to have 2 reads. So I would select the applicant here, and then over here I would select my 2 members. And then hit Save Assignment. Or maybe I want every applicant to have 2 reads, and I say, okay, this one, I'm going to select this one, but maybe you have a whole list and you want to do a random selection. You can actually select this random selection, tell it how many reviewers. So if I put 2 reviewers, and I had a whole list here, of course, and I click go, it's going to randomly select 2 reviewers to give to that applicant. And then I'm going to hit Save Assignment. And then, of course, if I had the assign unassigned, if I said unassigned, then only the applicants that were remaining would be left. The rest of the one that I just assigned would drop off, and then I could do the same and then do the next one and the next one. Or you could even do the reverse. You can do random select, like maybe I have 2 applicants over here and I want to assign it to just 1 reviewer over here. I can click go over there. I can click go over here. Or maybe you want everybody on the left, all the applicants, and all the reviewers to review. So all the reviewers would get every applicant. So Support CommunityForce would have 1, 2, 3, 4, would have the 5 applicants right here would be assigned to CommunityForce. Same with this one. They would get all 5 of them. And then once you've done your selection, you hit Save Assignment. And then you scroll to the bottom of the page, and this is your review sheet of the assignments you've just assigned. And this is where you can double check what you've done. You can even actually take this and export it to Excel. And you'll notice you also can get those PDFs here, the admin PDF and the reviewer PDF. And so if you want to see, okay, I just did an assignment, who did I assign this to? You can filter, and you can select the task you're looking for. And then what's the committee maybe that you assigned? Or if you didn't want to do tasks, you wanted to do all tasks, but you were looking for just that review committee we just assigned. You could do that. You can even go down to the level of the reviewer and select the reviewer, or you can leave it as all. Or maybe you're looking for a specific applicant. You want to know, who did I assign this applicant to, what committees, and how. You can do that as well. And then you can even do the assign dates. And then once you select your filters, you can hit display assignments. And then it's going to return the results of those assignments. So here's support at CommunityForce. They have 6 assignments, and then this is this task they've been assigned. And then this is the status of the applicants. You'll notice as soon as you assign applicants to a reviewer, they're going to go to under committee review. So if they're in multiple scholarships, they're going to, and the first one that they've been assigned to, they're going to now be at the under committee review status because you've assigned them, maybe they match to another scholarship, they're going to be there. And then here's all the assignment date that they've been assigned. And then in the grant site, it's going to be the same thing. You're going to have that information here as well, and the filters. Same information, but of course you're going to be assigning here when you assign applicants on the grant site. You're going to see your applicants are going to have the organization name and then the individual that applied for that organization. So you're going to see both of that here in this listing, and then that's who you're going to be choosing. And then also what's nice is when you're looking at the review down here, You're going to see that program name. If that program name is part of your process and that was built into the application, then that will show here in this column, and then you'll start being able to see the program that they were part of too. It won't show it up here, but once you make the assignments down here, you'll be able to see that program. So you'll know, okay, this one here I assigned in this program, and yes, I did get the right committee member for that specific program. So that's the difference with that's the grant site. And then this is the scholarship site. Now you also notice a last notification over here. And what this does is there's this notify reviewers. So we talked about how do you send an email to your reviewers. So from the committee assignments to committee screen, this is the only screen you can do this assignments to committees on. So while you're in this screen, you have this notify reviewers. If you want to notify a reviewer, all you have to do is, here's the reviewer name. And if I was to select this reviewer multiple times, that would send multiple emails to that reviewer. But I only want to send them one email. So that's why I'm going to sort this column. You can hit this column, sort it by reviewer name, and then it'll group them all together. You can select that reviewer. You can select multiple if I had multiple reviewers here, but I just have the one right now. And then you hit this notify reviewer button. Now this is the only place you can do this. Now an email template opens. However, you do not want to send this template here, because right now, if I was to start pulling this information over and I was to send an email right now, it's going to send that email to the applicant, not to the reviewer. You'll notice there's not even reviewer fields here. So the first step is there is a template out there. It's called Committee Applications Are Ready for Review. So this is the only template you can use to send emails to your reviewers. So when you first come in here, it's very important that you select this email template, Committee Applications Are Ready for Review. If you do not select this email template, it will not send it to the reviewers. It's going to send it to the applicants. So you'll notice as soon as I selected this template, I now have these reviewer merge fields. So that's how you know, okay, this has got those fields, so I know this is going to go to my reviewers. Committees, applications are ready for review. Now you can go into your notification center if you took the training on notification center, locate this template, and maybe there's one generalized message that you want to give to all your reviewers. Maybe when you're ready to release them to your committee, you might want to do one email to everybody. And so this can be your base email that you have that message in there for it to go out to them. Or maybe I'm just sending a quick message to this reviewer. I've selected this template, but I don't have to use this specific message. I can actually, for this one message that I'm sending, let me take all that out. I can go ahead and add just a quick message of my own to just that one reviewer. Something to that extent. You can send them a quick message if you wanted to, and then you can schedule it to go out, or you can hit send now, and then it would send those out immediately. But just remember, the most important thing is to make sure you choose this template. And then, of course, once you choose that template, you can use that message, or you can, quickly, if you want to just change it, you can change it. You're not changing the actual template. You're just changing this one occurrence of this email. I'm going to cancel. So that's how you can notify your reviewers. Now you'll notice there's also a remove assignment. So this is a button you want to use extreme caution. Again, anytime we say delete or remove, you always want to use caution, because once it's gone, it's gone. So you may have a committee member that was supposed to be on the committee, but then maybe once they receive the applicant, especially with grant organizations, once you've assigned that applicant to them, they realize that there's a conflict of interest, and so they can't review that applicant. So as long as they have not scored, because once they've scored, if you remove assignments, you're going to lose those scores. So if they've scored and you don't want the scores, then it's fine to remove them, because if it was a conflict of interest, they probably shouldn't have scored them anyway. But this is where you're going to want to start. You want to start backwards. First of all, the first step in any removal is, one, ask yourself, did they score? If they scored, then you don't want to remove it unless you're okay with removing the score, because if you remove it, you're going to remove the score. If you're okay with that, then the next step is come here to the assignment. You need to remove that assignment. So your next step is to come here, locate that individual. Okay, here's the reviewer, support CommunityForce. You can do the filter. And then this is the applicant that they can't review. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to select this specific assignment. And you can do multiple. So maybe this reviewer isn't going to be on the committee at all. Maybe they need to be completely off. So let me do that with one. Let me take this committee member here, committee review, and reviewer, this one, and display their assignments. And so this one is wanting to come completely off the committee. So I'm just going to select that, and I'm going to remove all of their assignments, or I can just remove the one if I wanted to. And then I can hit remove assignment, and I can select yes, and I can click OK. And now that assignment will no longer be on that specific reviewer. Now at this stage, I could go ahead, if that other individual was on the committee already, if I'm going to reassign it to somebody, if that person's on the committee already, I can just come up here and do that quick assignment. I can, do my all applicants. I can search for that applicant, those 6 individuals, and then I can select my committee. And if that person was on the committee that I want to assign them to, then I can come here and then I can hit save assignment. I can do that at that time. But if not, then the next step, one, I remove the assignment from the person I want to remove from the committee. And then I go to my manage committees. Remember, we're working backwards. So remove the assignment first. First step, did they score? If not, then you can remove the assignment. Remove the assignment, go to the committee, and then if you were going to remove that person from the committee, just click the committee name here, remove them, and now who's the new person? You want to add them, hit continue, and now that person's removed from the committee, and you've removed the whole assignment and everything. And so then, of course, now that I've added Sebastian, then I would need to go back to the assignments and then do my select my task, go through the same process, select my committee, select my applicants, do my filtering, and now I've got my applicants, and maybe I want him to get all of them, and then I guess select that one, and then I don't need to select both of them. I'm just assigning it to Sebastian. He's getting all 6 of them that I just unassigned from Arvo, and then I can hit the save assignment, and now that individual will now have the assignments down here. And now I've switched them out. And now now I can notify this reviewer and tell them they've got their assignments. Please go out there and assign. So that is pretty much how you set up your review process. So now once you've assigned your committees, you're ready for them to start reviewing. And so the next training that you're going to want to look at of this session is then how do you monitor the review process? How do you see those reviewers as they're reviewing? And then how do you see the results of that process? So we're going to talk about in that next training these the review committee status, the review results, how to get the reviewer's scorecard, and then how to see the results of that managed automated scoring if you set that up. And that'll be in the next training session. So that's it for today's session. And so I hope we were able to answer the majority of your questions and that you have a good understanding of how to set up your reviewers. So I appreciate your time, and everyone have a good day.